Hey Anshita, welcome to day 1000.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So many founders are building in the category you are, trying to kind of make popular, which is selling consumer product goods to the masses. I also feel raising funding at a young age and really scaling your business into multi-million dollars is a dream for many. And I think you've done all of that. I want to but take you back to, I think the first few months of your company, and the intention is to unpack insights from the first 1,000 days a founder goes through. As you know, that's one of the hardest phase of your life where you are essentially trying to create a company from an idea in the air and actually, make a dead entity alive. It requires a
Yeah,
lot of inertia. So
yeah.
that's the whole intention. But before we get into all of that, Anshita, for somebody who probably doesn't know you, a quick intro of you and what your company does.
Yes. So, hi, my name is Anshita Mehrotra. I'm the founder of Fix My Curls. Fix My Curls is a curly and wavy hair care brand. We sell hair care products that help you embrace your natural hair texture. So, I started Fix My Curls when I was 19. I'm 26 today, so well over 1,000 days old. And yeah, I think we've been building in a niche category, but we're serving a very important group of people that I felt were very underserved in the hair care industry. And today we're available basically anywhere you want to find us and in 10 minutes. So that's a bit about the brand.
Fantastic. And what's the scale right now which you're at?
Right now, we're doing around between three and a half GMV every month, of course. And we're hoping that now in the months of October, November, December, we finally hit 4 plus for the first time. Pretty sure it's going to happen in the month of October, if not November, but very excited. The goal is that by January, we're doing 5 crores. But yeah, now we're officially comfortably at three and a half, somewhere between that every month.
Fantastic.
Um,
So,
yeah.
how did you get your first few customers way back in 2019?
So, from the beginning in 2019, I knew that I was building in a niche category where aspiration for that specific category wasn't necessarily there. A lot of education around the product type was missing, which is curly hair products. So, I knew that I had to start at the very base, which is to build community. And I went to the best place to build community, which is Instagram. In 2019, Instagram didn't even have reels. So the focus was highly on just posting a lot of before after static images and leading people through those images to sort of understand, okay, my hair kind of looks like this sometimes. I think this is my concern. And we'd lead them into our DMs. And I heavily relied on DMs to convert our first almost 1,000 customers. I did almost 1,000 consultations myself in the first 12 months. And from DMs, we'd lead people after converting them basically to Amazon to see if the conversions would happen. But I actually didn't have a D2C website for that first year. I had a WordPress blog, which had detailed information about the products and a lot of customer testimonials. But I built a D2C website very late. I actually started building our Amazon listings way earlier than most people do. Somehow it's benefited us today. Yeah, first 1,000 almost customers actually came just from our DMs. And even today, consultations account, we over 1,000 consultations a month right now still.
Wow, very interesting. So you leveraged content to make a community and then you converted that community revenue by doing free consultations. So a lot of
Yes.
hand holding, a lot of,
Lots of
I
handholding.
think a lot of talking to users is, what I'm
Yes.
understanding. So that's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah. And I mean, I think just to add, the handholding is important in a niche because if you can empower your first 1,000 customers, those 1,000 will empower the next 1,000 and so on and so forth. And you need to educate a certain group of people very highly to have them sell the product on your behalf. At the end of the day, it'll reduce your CAC.
Fantastic. How is it different today now after all these years? Where do you get your customers today?
Today, we get our customers through, to be very honest, distribution and just being visible. It's a different game today. Distribution is the one evil that you cannot avoid because it's also turns out to be the most beneficial. And at the end of the day, you do need it. Whether it's being available on quick commerce or being available on every marketplace that is up and running, even if it shuts down, you need to be available on it when it's running.
Hmm.
We've done our best to get make sure that the products are listed. In the last 6 years, we've been listed on so many marketplaces that don't exist anymore. But it always helps you reach a new customer base that, very honestly, you can't run as many meta ads as you want to run. You will be burning a hole in your pocket to get those people to your D2C website. So my belief is that today we do get customers through distribution and just visibility across marketplaces. So if you're visible, people will see you and they will remember you. And at the end of the day, they will find a place to buy you, but it may not be your website, and you have to give them that choice.
Fantastic. You know, when you're building a company and you feel you have some level of product market fit, you're very tempted to grow the company quickly and build features, get customers, and whatnot. And more often than not, a lot of founders, have a lot of regrets of spends they do. Do you have any regrets, any areas you thought you should have avoided spending?
100%. Biggest regret would be spending on large photo shoots with too many people involved, too many images that we weren't going to use, very low focus and more just pressed on volume rather than quality, and just working with faces that we couldn't really afford at the time. But I felt, let me take this risk of paying more money now and seeing whether it converts later. I think today I learned the hard way. You need to work with any creator prior to putting them in a big shoot. You need to work with them in small ways to see whether that conversion is going to come later. And I think a lot of us spend money on brand ambassadors or larger faces. And I made this mistake early, thankfully. I made it in my almost third year of business. I'm in my sixth year of business now. I actually finished my sixth year of business now. So I think, yes, I large photo shoots and just PR. I have to say this also. I don't know how many people say this, but I think PR, spending on PR as a small brand is absolutely useless. And I unfortunately thought it would make a huge difference to have a fancy article about us. But I think most founders know now that it really doesn't make the biggest difference. It doesn't come off as authentic when you're that small. It helps later, but I think there's a very specific kind of PR, and at the end of the day, it all costs money. And I wish I hadn't done a lot of it before, because I think I would have saved a good, today I'll say 15, 20 lakhs I spent over 2 years on activities like this that I wish I hadn't.
Wow. I think, it's very hard not to chase vanity sometimes, because I think the moment you start making money, you feel like, oh, maybe, I could go for
Let
those
me
shiny
spend a little.
things.
Let me spend.
Let me spend a little. Let me get a known face. Let me kind of make my content more beautiful. But at least my learning also has been that these are usually just, blips of, growth you see. But the
Yeah.
moment you kind of take that money away, it shuts down. And then you realize, oh, it's actually not a long term investment which works out.
At the end of the day, it's not sustained. And if you're having to push to get a customer to purchase, you're never going to have pull power. And pull at the end of the day is what leads to long term success and survival.
Right, right, absolutely. Last part, right? Channels are very important for a company to realize, and the earlier you realize them, the better it is. But it's very hard to pick a channel because it's a game of hit and try, and that's why so many companies spend so much time on so many channels just to shut them down. I'm trying to see if your experience can maybe help some founders prevent that from happening. So I wanted to ask you your most underrated and overrated channels. Could you start with maybe the most underrated first?
Okay. I'm going to say the most underrated channel for us turned out to be the channel that has high focus on specifically the average order value we look for, that's closest to what our average selling price is. Because at the end of the day, there are channels that might have larger volumes, but not a focused group of customers that always will feel like your product is too expensive. I
Right.
have fought too long to win on those channels and then realized later ki yaar, the place that we could have won was always going to be the focused marketplace. So I'm going to say any beauty marketplace for us, like a Nykaa, a Tira, a Mintra, a Purple even, amazing. However, they all have different categories of focus. For example, some of them will be more focused on fashion, some more focused on skin and makeup. So you need to see where your category fits. And for us, I think Nykaa was one of the most underrated channels. And I know Nykaa is a very popular channel. So me saying this maybe sounds like, how is it underrated? It's underrated because I think it's not as easy to win on Nykaa as it is to win on an Amazon. So you end up spending a lot of money on maybe an Amazon or a Flipkart because you have control on the seller dashboard, right? But the truth is, I mean, Nykaa has a very high quality of beauty customers.
Right.
Amazon has a brilliant base of customers that are very good at looking for electronics when the time comes. But the reality is that Nykaa with beauty the customer has such a specific keen eye for niche subcategories that it turned out to be the most beneficial for us, and we have a very loyal base on Nykaa now, and we grew very very fast there once we actually started focusing on the supply chain. And I think that's where they really need your support, right? You need to be very prepared on the back end for whatever they ask you for, and this isn't just money, this is just product at the end of the day. If you don't have inventory, anyway, it's a losing game anywhere. You cannot win distribution if you don't have sufficient inventory and you're not planning far enough. So anyway, it's a losing game there. But I think underrated for me was that I kept thinking I should go to the place where there's more people flooding in and where it's easier. But you should definitely fight to make your space on a marketplace like a Nykaa or a Tira. And it is not easy, but it's so worth it. That consumer is so worth it.
Fantastic. So a focus community which has your power users. So
Yes.
do research in that is I think the insight here. What
Yeah.
about overrated?
Oh my God. Overrated, again, I'm going to say that quick commerce.
Okay. Why do you say
Yeah,
that?
I love Blinkit. We have wonderful partners in Blinkit, and we've had wonderful partnerships with the others as well. However, I do need to very transparently say that you don't need to be with the holy triangle as a brand. You can choose one partner and work really well with them because each of their systems differ. Even if on the outside it looks like their systems must be the same because they run the same model, but they're not. They all have different contracts, they require something different from you, and they're all going to win in with different categories, that they all are focusing differently on different categories, and you need to understand that and study each platform before you just simply decide, let me jump into whichever one says yes to me. Because
Hmm.
most likely they're going to say yes, and then they're going to put the terms and conditions of you need to spend X amount before we even put you live. So
Hmm.
you need to decide, am I okay with that? Because is where they're present across India, is that a focused part of the country for me where I feel like my customer is sitting there? For sure. Um, because the way that maybe a Zepto or a Blinkit or an Instamart are spread is very different. And today you also have Big Basket, you have Flipkart Minutes, have Amazon also has a platform now for quick commerce. So you can choose accordingly, and trust me, each of them will specialize differently and they will have a higher focus on a specific category, whether you like it or not. You just need to find out what that is. And I know this comes with a lot of privilege. I say this because we have access to all of them, so we can ask them. But you can also read their annual reports and kind of figure out where they have been growing a lot, because most likely they're putting visibility and money there, and there are going to be categories they're not focusing on, and you need to decide whether that's good for you or it isn't good for you. But don't blindly rush into it, because I'm sorry, the supply chain cycle is 7 to 10 days, and you need to be okay with that, and you need to be okay with being paid in 45 to 60 days. And if for the first 45 days you're okay with absolutely no cash flow from them, feel free to do it. But you need to have, that much money in the bank to feel okay for those first 45 to 60 days not being paid, but sending out inventory every 10 days. And then once the payment cycles start, of course it normalizes. But I would say that quick com is a bit overrated right now, and everybody is going goo goo gaga over it. But I do think you need to really just decide if it's for you or not. Because again, I'm going to say, like, for a fashion brand, you don't need to be on a quick com platform at all. You should first be, a hero in a Mintra or a Nykaa, right? After that, maybe you move towards something that difficult if you have that much pull. But if you have no pull, you're simply going to get delisted.
Right.
And if inventory doesn't move for them, they are very, very, they're strict about it, as they should be, because there's not that much shelf space. So
Right.
I would say quick com is overrated because not every founder can afford what happens to you if it doesn't work out. So
Fantastic. No, I think I love the framework, right, of really understanding where your users are and understanding your category well. I think those are the three questions. But as a parting thought, Anshita, right,
yeah.
I would love to ask you, I think the most important question, right, which is getting through the first 1,000 days is actually the hardest part of the journey, right? You're starting something which has no authority, no customers, no value. You have so much competition. What's your take for founders who are just starting out? How do you get through the first 1,000 days?
Say be extremely authentic, be shameless for the first 1,000 days. If you're gonna fail, you're gonna fail, right? Like, that's what everyone's afraid of. But if you win, you win. And no, and there are very few people who are gonna win. So I was very shameless and asking for help, asking for support, sending people links, cold DMs, cold emails, talking about the brand all the time to anybody who was in my vicinity. I have to say that if you're not shameless enough and you're shy about the fact that you're building, it's not going to take you anywhere. And in fact, you will most likely lose then because you're too busy thinking about what people think of you and the brand. I think if you're willing to jump in the deep end, then just learn to swim, right? You can't start in the shallow end. That's not how being a founder works. You're pretty much pushed into the deep end from the first day, and things will get very, very hard before they get good. In fact, good, you need to have a very balanced attitude and approach to the good things that happen, because most likely the next day something bad will also happen. If you get too happy, then the lows feel very, very low and the highs feel very high. So I think one thing is for sure that those 1,000 days, you'll get through them if you try to have a balanced attitude towards horrible things happening and great things happening, because I've had maybe some of the worst stuff happen that can happen to any founder, whether it is losing tens of thousands in inventory and being out of stock for 30 days during a festive season
Wow.
because of a printing error and having to lose all of that inventory, right? It's crushed, it's gone. Or, being in a situation where I'm getting a legal notice that I had no idea was possible for me to get, but somebody found a way. And I think whether it's people leaving the company, like there's problems that are everywhere in every corner. So I do just have to say that have this audacity, be shameless, fight for what you're building, because nobody else cares as much as you care. And also nobody cares if you look silly on the internet for one day, because they will really regret not looking silly when you're successful in 2 years once you've crossed that 1,000-day threshold. And this is what I tell everybody: just please put yourself out there fully. But if you feel like you can't do that, then maybe don't be a founder, because that really is what it takes.
Couldn't agree more. I think there's some really profound pieces you just highlighted. Be shameless, embrace the cringe, hug the cactus. There
Yeah.
are so many words for that, right? You
And
have to kind
nothing
of
is
like,
cringy. I think if you are a founder who meets 10 other founders, आपको immediately समझ में आ जाता है that none of these people care about cringe. We are all in the same boat. We are all ready to make pieces of content like this if it helps our brand. We will do anything to make sure we are increasing by 0.5% every single day, right? The
right.
fight is not to increase by 100% overnight. Hockey stick growth is rare and
Yeah.
often cannot be handled by anyone. So
Correct.
what you need to look for is compounding, and compounding takes patience and an audacity to say कि हाँ अभी अच्छा नहीं हो रहा है but मुझे पता है कि 365 days में अच्छा. But to have that audacity, you need to have this crazy belief in yourself, which a lot of people will try to kill because they love doing that. They'll be like,
Right.
who do you think you are? And you need to
Right.
say, I know who I am. Who you think I am doesn't matter to me. But I just think if you want to build, you need to have the audacity to build, and you'll do it then. You'll do it somehow. And I've met a lot of people who are doing the craziest things on the internet right now to make sure that they're selling a unit a day, but they don't care. They're not sitting and cribbing about it. I think they're just being very authentically themselves, and I think that is the thing that's required to succeed today.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, Anshita. I think that's our time. I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I really did.
Awesome. And for everybody watching till now, if you'd like another founder like Anshita join us, please subscribe to our channels and a new episode will come out very soon. Bye bye.